To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.
So my dear children, in the earlier chapters, we discussed about several things regarding the, the space explorations. First of all, we discussed about the rockets and how does a movement of a rocket occurs with the action of the fuel combustion, and according to that the reaction which is given is the one which is being utilized over there. And we discussed how to prepare a water rocket in order to identify the action of a rocket, of the motion of a rocket. Then at the final session in our last chapter, we discussed about the artificial satellites, right? So we discussed that satellites are the objects that's going to revolve around our earth, but these things are pretty much smaller. So all the smaller objects which are going to rotate around our earth, actually it should be revolute. So revolute around our earth is called as the satellites. So artificial satellites are the ones that are specially being prepared by special machines that are being prepared by human beings, which are being sent to the outer space through rockets in order to get several useful advantages like telecommunication and obtaining weather reports and climatic changes and so on. Then my dear children, now in this chapter we'll be observing about the second main type of satellites, the communication satellites. But however, before that you are given with a certain point in here. See, observe the sky in a clear night between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. So you have to observe the night in a clear night sky between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. If you see a star-like object moving through the stars, it is a satellite. Now if you can observe a star-like object which is moving through stars, okay, which is moving through stars, which is not falling, my dear children, which is moving. Now a star-like object which is moving, so that could be a satellite. Okay, that could be a satellite. Then if you see a falling of a star-like object, it may be a meteor, right? So if you take a star-like object which is falling, right, a star-like object which is falling towards the ground, right, actually it is coming towards the ground mainly because of the gravitational force of the earth, right? These stars or meteoroids, those things are coming towards the earth because of the gravitational force. Actually these things are getting attracted towards the earth because of the gravity. So if you can see such a star which is falling towards the earth's surface, then my dear children, that may be a meteor. Okay, that may be a meteor, right? That may be a meteor. We can't say it for sure, but however it can be a meteor, right? So this is the difference between a satellite and a meteor. Meteor is always coming towards the surface of the earth, right? It's like a falling star. However, if you take a satellite is moving along a straight line, but like it's moving at a horizontal line, not on a vertical line. Okay, it's moving on a horizontal line like this. So if it is moving in a horizontal line, then my dear children, it could be a satellite. It could be a satellite. If it is falling down, then that might be a meteor, right? So my dear children, after that, then a main topic is given, communication satellites. Communication satellites. So let's see, what do you mean by a communication satellite? So the world's first commercial communication satellite was launched on July 10th, 1962, and it was the Telstar 1. So this Telstar 1 is the first and foremost commercial communication satellite which was launched to the outer space, and it was launched on 10th July 1962, Telstar 1, right? So Telstar 1 was the first and foremost satellite sent to the outer space, right? And it was the first and foremost communication satellite, a commercial communication satellite. So my dear children, until today, there are thousands of communication satellites orbited around the Earth to provide telephone, television and web facilities. So these satellites which are being specialized, right, which are utilized or which are specialized in making telecommunications are referred as communication satellites. In the earlier, now we have studied about artificial satellites. Artificial satellites means all the types, any kind of satellite. Especially there is a type of a satellite which is referred as communication satellites. So these communication satellites are the ones which we use in telecommunication networks. Most of the times we use these things in cable TV connections, web facilities, and as well as in telephone and like other telecommunication networks, right? So these things are referred as telecommunication satellites. Telecommunication satellites, or in short, you can say those things as communication satellites. So you can see within the figure here, this is a commercial communication satellite. As you can see, according to the given figure, most of the times, my dear children, these communication satellites, they receive energy from the sun. So these are solar panels. At the either sides, you can observe these things. These things are the solar panels contained within the satellite to obtain energy, right? Most of the times you know that these things are going to operate using electrical energy. So in order to get electrical energy, solar panels are being used like this, right? Solar panels. Then my dear children, this is the one which is referred as the Telstar 1, right? This is the Telstar 1 satellite. This part is, right, this part is the satellite, and this part is being fixed to the rocket so that it would launch to the outer space. And this is the satellite, my dear children, the Telstar 1, right? Okay, then after the communication satellite, there is a special one given here, my dear children. Let's see what are these types of communication satellites. Especially these types are referred as special type of a communication satellite which is being named as geostationary satellite. Let's see, what do you mean by a geostationary satellite in these communication satellites thing. So Sir Arthur C. Clarke came out with a new idea on communication by satellites. So Sir Arthur C. Clarke, who was a Sri Lankan citizen, right? He was a Sri Lankan citizen, right? At the later time period, he was a Sri Lankan citizen. So he was the first and foremost scientist to came up with the idea that these telecommunication satellites or communication can be done through satellites. Okay, he was the first person who gave the idea that communication can be done through satellites, right? So the satellite technology was first introduced to the concept of satellite technology was first introduced to the world by Sir Arthur C. Clarke. Okay, so he said that if a satellite is orbited around the Earth at the same speed as the speed of Earth's rotation at a certain height, it will be seen stationary from the Earth. What do you mean by that? What's the meaning of that? The meaning is, You know that here he said that if a satellite is orbited around the Earth at the same speed as the speed of the Earth rotation, at a certain height it will be stationary from the Earth. You know that our Earth is rotating, right? Our Earth is rotating. What happens if I can rotate a certain object like this at the same speed of the rotation like this? So in that case, my dear children, right, in that case, what happens is, it's like this. Now, these are two objects. Let's imagine the arm that I have my pen and the arm that I have here are two different objects which are rotating like this, right? Like this. So as you can see here, these are two different rotations. Their speeds are different to each other. But however, what if like this, I am going to rotate at the same speed like this. So if I am going to rotate these two at the same speed, always you can see that this phase is always facing towards this side, unlike this. So if I am going to rotate it like this, as you can see here, always this phase is always facing this one, right? So as the speeds are similar, you can see that when I am moving like this, the speed of this arm is similar to the speed of that arm. Otherwise, if the speeds are different to each other, then it would move like this, no? However, if the speeds are similar, then it would travel along in the same direction, right, at the same speed, and also they would face the same surfaces each other. It's because their velocities or their speeds are equal to each other. Okay. So if we can rotate or if we can, move a certain satellite in the same speed as the rotation of the Earth to a certain point, right, that satellite would be stationary. To a certain point, that satellite would be stationary, right? I mean, my dear children, if we assume that I am going to project a certain satellite to outer space, pointing me or projecting me, or it is always going to, that satellite, that particular satellite is always directing towards me. Okay, then I am going to project that satellite to outer space. So you know that our Earth is rotating around our sun. Even though the Earth is rotating around the sun, or even though the Earth is revoluting around, even though the Earth is rotating around itself, if we can project it to the similar speed as the rotation of the Earth, always that satellite would be pointing me, not any other place else. It's because that along with the rotation of the Earth, in the same speed, the satellite also going to move. Okay, so always when I'm looking up like this, always the satellite is above my head, right? It's because the speed is not going to change at all. It's like two buses. It's like two buses which are traveling at a straight line at the same constant speed, and you and one of your friend is at the other bus looking at each other. So you can see that even though the buses are moving, you guys are at a straight line. It's because that the two buses are traveling at the same speed in the same direction. Okay. So the same thing can be observed in these satellites as well. Okay. So my dear children, so here it will be seen stationary from the Earth. Such a satellite is a geostationary satellite. So this kind of a satellite is called as a geostationary satellite. this kind of satellite is called a geostationary satellite. Geostationary satellite. Sir Arthur C. Clarke clarified that if there are 3 of such satellites are positioned around the Earth, the whole globe can be covered with communication facilities. Right. So Sir Arthur C. Clarke told that if we can project 3 of these satellites to the outer space, then, my dear children, we can cover up the entire communication network of the globe. So 3 geostationary satellites are enough to cover up the entire communication system of the whole globe. So this idea was given to the world first by the great scientist who was also a Sri Lankan person, Sir Arthur C. Clarke. So as you can see within the figure, these are the geostationary satellites, 3 geostationary satellites, and these are revolving around the Earth at the speed of the rotation of the Earth. So now the world is converted to a global village by the orbited geostationary satellites using the idea presented by Arthur C. Clarke in 1945. Now, my dear children, if you take our planet, you know that we can communicate with the people who are living in United States, with the people who are living in United Kingdom, with the people who are living in Japan, China, India, right? Then Australia, Africa, in any kind of a place, we can communicate with the people without any trouble. We have strong telecommunication network around the globe. Any person who is living in any kind of a corner of the planet has the ability to contact any person around the globe by using these satellites, satellite technology. It's because that the idea presented by, the idea given out or idea represented by the Arthur C. Clarke is now came to an, right? It's now came to reality, right? Now it's a reality, my dear children. We use these geostationary satellites in nowadays. That's how we can communicate globally without any problem. You know that you can use these Wi-Fi things. You know that you can use applications like Skype, WhatsApp, Facebook, right? These kind of social media platforms. So by using these things, we know that we can communicate with any of the people who is living any kind of a place, right? It's because of the geostationary satellites, my dear children, mainly because of the geostationary satellites. So this is the main use of the geostationary satellites, my dear children. These things help in, right? These things helps in, but mainly in telecommunication, my dear children. So mainly helps in telecommunication. So now the world is converted to a global village. It has been converted into a global village. Global village means you can communicate with any of the person you want at any time you want without any trouble. No matter which corner the person is going to live on. It's not going to be a problem at all. So with the help of this idea presented by Arthur C. Clarke on 1945, right? We have entered into the global village thing, right? So my dear children, these are about the geostationary satellites, a special kind of a communication satellite sent to the outer space, which the speed of the satellite is equal to the rotation speed of the Earth, right? So that these satellites are seen to be stationary for the Earth as the 2 speeds are equal to each other. So these things are being used mainly in telecommunication networks. Right then. So for extra knowledge, my dear children, a table is given. Right? A table is given for the extra knowledge. So now let's see what are the important things which are given in this table. So launching of artificial satellites was commenced by Russia, then Soviet Union in 1957 and by America in 1958. Some key points of era started since then are given below. So these are the key points or key, key inventions and key victories obtained by our mankind after the or since the era of Russian and American satellite networks. Okay, so first of all, Russia or the Soviet Union, by then, right, it was named as the by that time it was named as the Soviet Union. So now it's Russia. So Russia or Soviet Union was the first country to send a communication satellite or artificial satellite, my dear children. Then after that, America. So after that era, my dear children, these are several key points, key victories obtained by mankind on the space explorations. Let's see. So several spacecrafts given. Luna 1. Here it is specially mentioned as unmanned. So there was no man. Spacecraft name is Luna 1. The year which it was sent was 1959 by the Russian Federation. So the historical importance is given in this third column. The first moon exploration satellite to travel near the moon. Now Luna 1 is the first moon exploration satellite sent to near the moon, right? To near the moon. The first artificial satellite which was sent was the Luna 1 in 1959 by the Russian Federation. Spacecraft that became the first artificial planet around the sun. Right. So here, this Luna 1 was the first spacecraft that became the first artificial planet around which is going to revolve around the sun. So you know that things which are revolving around the sun can be considered as planets. So this is an artificial planet, my dear children, as it is a man-made one. So small, it is very smaller, we know that, but however it can be considered as an artificial planet, right? So this was the Luna 1 was the first artificial planet that was projected to the outer space to revolve around the sun. Okay, then the next one, Luna 2, once again it is unmanned, sent on 1959 by the same country, Russia, and it is the first unmanned spacecraft to land on moon. Now in the earlier Luna 1, right, got information about the moon, and it was orbited around the moon but never landed. But the Luna 2, my dear children, it landed on the moon, right? So the first artificial object which reached to the another world. So this is the first artificial object which reached to the another world, right? You can consider the moon as another world, right? A different world rather than the earth. Their nature is somewhat different, no? When you compare it with the earth. So this artificial object, which is the Luna 2, is the first artificial object that reached the another world, right? Another world. Then, my dear children, Luna 3, once again in the same year by the same country, 1959, by the Russian people. They sent this thing to take photographs of the other side of the moon's surface for the first time. You know that there is always, if you take the moon, there is only one side that we can observe. the other half, which is the darker side of the moon, right, which is referred as the darker side of the moon, because that half is never visible to us. So that half was first investigated by Luna 3, right, Luna 3 space satellite, which was sent to the outer space by Russian Federation in 1959. Then, my dear children, Vostok 1, a manned one. Here it's mentioned as manned. That's the that was sent to the outer space in 1961. The same country, Russia. Yuri Gagarin. So he was the first astronaut to conquer the outer space. He was the first astronaut who went to the outer space. Yuri Gagarin. It was a huge milestone for the mankind. The first and foremost time which a human being went to the outer space. So he was Yuri Gagarin, astronaut Yuri Gagarin, for the first time from the Vostok 1, right, from the spacecraft Vostok 1. Then, my dear children, Vostok 2, once again a manned one, 1961 by Russia, consumed food in the space for the first time. So in Vostok 2, right, people consumed, or the astronaut consumed food for the first time in outer space, right, in the same year as the Vostok 1 was launched, 1961 by the Russian Federation. So as you can see here, most of the things were first conquered by the Russian Federation. The first artificial satellite, Luna 1, was launched to the outer space by Russia. First manned satellite or first manned object or spacecraft sent to the outer space also by Russia, right? And the first and foremost food taken at the outer space also been named with the, or also it's been introduced by the Russian people. Okay, right. So the next one, my dear children, let's head on to see what are the other things contained. Then, my dear children, now here the first and foremost American spacecraft or the spaceship is given in the next table, right? So Mercury 1, which is a manned spacecraft sent in year 1961 by the USA or United States of America. Alan Shepard became the first American astronaut who went to the outer space. Alan Shepard, the first American astronaut who went to the outer space. Then Mercury 2, once again Mercury 2, a manned spacecraft. In 1962, America was the one which sent this Mercury 2 to the outer space. John Glenn became the first American astronaut to orbit completely around the Earth. Now, John Glenn was the first astronaut who complete an entire cycle around, or who orbited a complete cycle around the Earth. Right? John Glenn became the first American astronaut to do that by the spacecraft Mercury 2. Then Vostok 3, Vostok 4, both of these crafts are manned, sent on year 1962 by the Russian Federation, my dear children. Two spacecrafts came closer to each other in the space. So these two came closer to each other in the outer space. Vostok 3 and Vostok 4 in 1962, right? Then Vostok 6, once again a manned one. In year 1963, Russian Federation sent this Vostok 6 to the outer space. Then Valentina Tereshkova became the first female astronaut, right? Valentina Tereshkova was the first female astronaut to conquer the outer space, right? So Vostok 6 was the spacecraft. Then, my dear children, Ranger 7, once again unmanned one, right? Ranger 7. Then year 1964 by America, year 1964 by America, sent detailed photographs of the moon's surface for the first time. Detailed photographs means that by looking at these photographs, we can observe the craters and the things which is included on the surface of the moon. So, somewhat detailed photographs were sent by this spacecraft. What is that? Ranger 7, sent on 1964. Then Ranger 8, once again unmanned one, right? Year was 1965, once again USA or America. Then, my dear children, it sent photographs of a sea, sent photographs of a sea Tranquility, which was a place expected to land Apollo spacecraft, right? So, send photographs of a sea of Tranquility, right, which was a place expected to land Apollo spacecraft. So, in 1965, the Ranger 8 was the spacecraft which took these photographs. Then Vostok 2, once again a manned one, year 1965, right? Russian Federation was the one which sent this thing. Then first man to walk in the space, Alex Leonov. So, you know that spacewalks are somewhat, you know, like you have seen these things even in your movies or, you know, when you take television series, TV series, or when you take films, movies, right? And also in documentaries, you have seen these things, I think, right? You have seen these things, spacewalks. So the first person to make a spacewalk was the Alex Leonov. He was a Russian astronaut and he walked on the space in the year of 1965 by using the spacecraft Vostok 2. Then Gemini 3, once again a manned one, sent by America in 1965. First computer to be taken to the space. It took the first computer to the outer space, right? First computer, Gemini 3. In 1965, Americans were the ones who sent this thing. It took the first and foremost computer to the outer space. Then, my dear children, the next one, Luna 9. Once again an unmanned one. Year 1966, Russian Federation was the one which sent this thing. Soft landing of a moon exploring craft on moon for the first time. So, it was landing on the moon very gently and softly, and it was the first craft of, it was the craft which was exploring moon for the first time. Okay, Luna 9. Then Gemini 8, once again a manned one. In 1966, United States of America is the country that sent this thing. So, a manned spacecraft to join with a rocket in a orbit of in the orbit for the first time. So, a manned spacecraft to join with a rocket in the orbit for the first time. So, it was the first and foremost. It is the first and foremost spacecraft that joined with a certain rocket at the outer space, right? Then the next one, Surveyor 1. So, year 1966 by America, soft landing of the first American mooncraft. So, soft landing on the American, soft landing on the moon for the first time, and it was a American spacecraft, not a Soviet one, right? Lunar Orbiter 1, unmanned. Then 1966 by America, the first moon exploring craft to map the moon. Now it was the first spacecraft that has been used to map the surface of the moon, right? It took a map, or it prepared a map of the moon. Then the next one, Apollo 8, year 1968 by America. It is a manned one. Then it is the first manned moon exploring craft to orbit the moon. So around the moon it orbited around the moon, right? So it was the first manned moon exploring craft. Manned moon exploring craft. First and foremost, manned moon exploring craft, right? In 1968, American people were the ones who sent this thing, Apollo 8. Then, my dear children, you are given with the most historical one at the end, right? So Apollo 11, manned spacecraft, a rocket, right? It is the rocket which been used is the Saturn V or Saturn V, right? That was the rocket which been sent, this Apollo 11, to the outer space. So it was on 1969, July 21st by the American people. So from this, we first set foot on the moon. The mankind first set foot on the moon. So in 1969, July 21st, astronaut Neil Armstrong landed on the moon with Michael Collins and Edwin Aldrin also joined this journey. So the three people who visited the journey was Neil Armstrong, an American astronaut, then Michael Collins, the second, and the Edwin Aldrin, right? Also called as Buzz Aldrin, right? He was the second astronaut to set foot on the moon. And these three people joined in this journey. So in 1969, my dear children, the mankind first set foot on the moon, right? It was a great historical victory obtained by the mankind for the first time in 1969. So up to now, there are several, now if you take up to these years, there are several manned and unmanned spacecraft sent to the moon, okay, to get several samples and to investigate about the structure and to get other information as well. But however, the first and foremost manned spacecraft which sent to the moon was sent by, right, American people by the Apollo 11. Okay, right then. So Neil Armstrong declared this statement after landing on the moon. This is a small footstep for a man, but a giant leap for mankind. Astronauts of Apollo 11 placed a memorial plate on the moon. It says, "We are men from planet Earth, placed out foot on the moon. We came in peace for all mankind." So, after setting foot on the moon, these people placed a memorial. So, within this memorial, my dear children, there was a special sentence. So, the sentence is very simple here. "We are men from planet Earth, placed foot on the moon. We came in peace for all mankind." So, here within this figure, you can see that memorial. So, here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind. The memorial plate placed by Apollo 11 astronaut on the moon. right? So this is a very special case for the entire mankind, my dear children. For the first time, we conquered the moon. We placed the foot on the moon, and even we placed a memorial to say that we are the first to came and we are the first to set foot on the moon, right? So this is that. Then Apollo program was over in 1972. 12 astronauts landed on various locations on the moon under this program. So I told you that up to now there are several astronauts who went to the moon, right? Several astronauts went to the moon. So actually by the end of 1972, my dear children, 12 astronauts went to the moon and landed on the moon to do several explorations and to do several investigations. So however, the Apollo program was ended in 1972. By that time there was around 12 people who set foot on the moon, right? So these are several special victories obtained by mankind during the space voyage, right? Okay then. Mentioned below are some victories in the field of space exploration gained after landing on the moon. So after landing on the moon, given below are several space victories, right? Victories obtained by mankind. So let's see what are those things. Number one given, unmanned spacecraft was sent to the moon and rocks from the crust were brought to the earth by Russia. Unmanned spacecraft was sent to the moon and rocks from its crust were brought to the earth by Russia. And now Russia investigate further things related to the moon, and unmanned spacecraft was sent and several samples of the earth crust was sent to the earth. Important information on Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune was gathered by the spaceships, Voyagers and Pioneers. Information on Mars and Mercury was collected by Mariner crafts. So, Voyager and Pioneer spacecraft took several information about Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune planets, while several information were gathered by Mariner spacecrafts on the Mars and Mercury, right? Several victories. Then the next one, various spacecrafts were landed on Mars and information on its crust was gathered, right? Various spacecrafts were landed on Mars and information on its crust was gathered. So various spacecrafts were landed on Mars, right? Different types of spacecrafts were landed on Mars. Even for now we know that there were several like people, scientists, they landed several spacecraft on the surface of the Mars and took several information about the crust of the Mars, right? And you know that even for today, scientists are investigating whether the Mars has life or not, whether the Mars has water or not. Still the investigations are going on. We don't know for sure whether there are any other life forms or whether there are water. However, up to information that we have right now, it's been considered as a dead planet without water. Okay. However, the further investigations are going to carry on with the Mars. These investigations are done by special kinds of machines and rovers which are wandering here and there on the crust of the Mars, right? So these spaceships and rovers and all the other machines were landed on the Mars successfully within successfully in this time period, right? Okay. So my dear children, let's move on with the next one then. Hubble Space Telescope was launched to observe the celestial bodies which are difficult to observe from the Earth. Right? So Hubble telescope was launched to the outer space in order to observe several other types of celestial objects which are very difficult to observe from our naked eye. Right? And even in recent years, my dear children, I think you could remember there was another special telescope launched to the outer space which was named as the James Webb Telescope. Right? So like that way, a special kind of a telescope which was launched in the earlier times, which was named as the Hubble telescope, right, took several very necessary or very important figures and pictures of the other celestial objects around our universe, right, about the stars and about other planets. All of these things were gathered by this Hubble telescope. Okay. Right then, so these are several victories obtained by the mankind in the field of space explorations after they've been set foot on the moon. Earlier, Russia and America established space stations separately, but now both above countries, in collaboration with some other countries, maintain the International Space Station or ISS jointly. So now in the earlier times, my dear children, right, in the earlier times, there was a space station which is referred as, there was no space station, International Space Station. These guys had different space stations for their explorations, right, in the earlier times. So in the earlier times, Russia and America established space stations separately. But now, my dear children, by gathering all the resources and by joining with other different countries, they have made, right, scientists have made all around the globe, scientists who are living all around the globe, who are dealing in space explorations. All of these scientists who are in all around the globe, right, they are now maintaining one single space station. This space station is called as International Space Station, which is also referred as ISS, right? So by gathering all the resources around the Earth, right, around the globe, this ISS is being placed on the outer space in order to get several information and to, like if a certain emergency would come, then these spacecrafts would travel to that place and they can, like repair the damage, right? So several countries like Russia and America maintains this space station. Okay, so this is the International Space Station, ISS, my dear children, right? So it is a very large space station, right? It's a very large one. So for other purposes like refueling, repairing and all the other purposes are being conducted here at the ISS, right? So there are several countries engaged in maintaining this station like China, Japan, America, India and also Soviet Union or Russia. All of these countries engage in maintaining this ISS or International Space Station, my dear children, in present, right? So it's a very important, right? It's a very important place at the outer space. All of the new missions are being carried out by basically mainly from this ISS. Okay, so all the repairings of the spacecraft, then refueling, and all of these things are being carried out by through the ISS, my dear children. However, like up to now, right, still the space explorations are going to carry on, my dear children, and there is no end of it. I told you that we can't actually study all the things in our universe. There is no end for the universe. We assume that thing as a endless one. We don't know whether there is an end or not, right? There's no way to find out it also. So only thing that we can do is go for the explorations and find out more details. Right then. So that's all about with the space explorations and, my dear children, the victories obtained by mankind on space observations and explorations. Right, my dear children. So you are given with the assignment, as you can see here. Prepare a booklet on the recent victories of the space explorations. So what you have to do in here, you have to make out a booklet about the space explorations. A special kind of a booklet including all the victories obtained by the space explorations. So you can use that table over there which was given, right? At that table, several information was included, my dear children, right? So you can refer that table also in answering or in making or in gathering information about this space explorations, my dear children. So what you have to do at your home, my dear children, this is very important to follow, because by that way your curiosity also will be increased. As you are going to find out new things in our universe, your curiosity also will be increased for sure. So try to find out several information regarding the space explorations, my dear children. So by that way, make a good booklet, or make a make a small bit of a booklet on the space victories obtained by the mankind, right? So even you can refer the internet also for this thing, right? You can refer the internet also for this thing. You can refer internet and you can find out several details regarding the space explorations, right? And different new trends on recent victories even, right? Like the one which I have told. So you know that recently James Webb telescope was launched, and from that even we have now observed a black hole, a clear image of a black hole, right? So like that way there are several victories which took by the mankind in recent years also. Now very recently, I think, my dear children, we have found a planet which is very similar to the nature of the earth, right? Very similar to the nature of the earth. However, those things are very far away from us. So like that way there were several victories obtained by the mankind upon the space explorations. So what you have to do, try to find out like those kind of incidents, those kind of special information regarding the space victories, right? So by that way your curiosity also will be increased, and for the field of space you will get even more interest, right? Right then. So my dear children, with that part we are going to wind up the chapter, and from next chapter onwards we'll be discussing the final part of the lesson, which is about the constellations, right? So my dear children, I'll hope that you will study with me till the end of our lesson, right? And I'll meet you with our next chapter about the constellations, right? After finishing out this thing, right? So stay with me till the end of the lesson, my dear children. Like in the previous lesson, we'll be discussing several questions at the end also. So up to now, we'll be finishing up this chapter, and in the next chapter, we'll discuss about the constellations.
To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.